A courtroom holds its breath. On one side, billionaire mogul Damien Blackwood, a man who owns the city skyline, smirks at his high-priced legal team. On the other, his estranged wife, Emma Vance, pale and penniless, clutches the hand of her legal aid lawyer. Damien is demanding full sole custody of their 5-year-old son, Oliver. He's painted Emma as unstable, hysterical, and unfit. He has videos, witness testimonies, and a corrupt doctor's report to prove it. He's about to win. But he made one mistake. In his mansion of glass and steel, Damien installed a secret illegal network of cameras to control his wife. What he never ever expected was for the judge to find the footage of him. The Blackwood penthouse wasn't a home, it was a statement. It occupied the entire 90th floor of the Blackwood Tower, a monument of darkened steel and one-way glass that pierced the Chicago clouds. Inside the floors were Italian marble. The furniture was minimalist and painfully expensive, and the windows showcased a 360-degree view of a city that Damien Blackwood felt he owned. Emma Vance had lived there for 7 years. She had been a gallery curator, bright and passionate, when she met Damien at a charity gala. He was magnetic, a force of nature. He didn't just enter a room, he conquered it. Their romance was a whirlwind, a Cinderella story splashed across the pages of Forbes and Vogue. The wedding was an event. The birth of their son Oliver was a legacy. But the gilding on the cage had begun to peel long ago. Damien didn't love, he possessed. His affection was a form of control. He didn't ask about her day. He reviewed her schedule. He didn't compliment her dress. He had his personal stylist approve it. Every meal, every social engagement, every friendship was curated, monitored, and ultimately approved or denied by Damien. Their life was a silent, sterile performance. The only warmth in the cavernous apartment came from the 50-square-foot playroom of their son Oliver. Ollie was a bright, sensitive boy, with Emma's wide green eyes and a nervous energy he'd learned from the tension in the air. He was Emma's entire world, the one pure, real thing in her life. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. It was Oliver's 5th birthday. Emma had, in a rare act of defiance, planned a small party, not the sterile, press-filled event Damien's PR team had scheduled for the weekend, but a real party. Just her Ollie and 2 of his little friends from kindergarten. She'd baked a messy, bright blue cake. Damien came home early. He didn't rage. He didn't yell. That wasn't his style. He walked into the kitchen, saw the blue frosting smeared on the quartz countertop, and simply stared. His silence was louder than a scream. He looked at Emma, his eyes flat and cold. "Clean this up," he said. "Damien, it's just a cake. It's just a... The boys are having fun. I see crumbs," he said, gesturing to the floor. "And I see... them." He nodded toward the 2 5-year-olds who had fallen silent, sensing the danger. Their parents weren't on the approved list. "They're his friends," Emma whispered, her voice trembling. Damien walked over to his PA, who was standing stiffly by the door. "Michael have security escort the guests and their parents out, and send a bill to the Vances for the cleaning." He meant her parents a threat to cut off the stipend he paid them. "No," Emma finally snapped. The word echoed in the vast kitchen. Damien turned, almost surprised. He raised a single eyebrow. "No, you will not do this. You will not ruin his birthday. You will not treat me like this." "I will treat you," Damien said, stepping close, his voice a low, terrifying purr. Exactly as your position dictates. You are Mrs. Blackwood. You are the mother of my heir. And you are at this moment an embarrassment." He turned to leave. "The party is over." That night, Emma Vance did something she hadn't done in 7 years. She acted without permission. She waited until 3 a.m. when Damien's breathing was deep and rhythmic in their cold, separate bedroom. She packed 2 small bags, one for her, one for Oliver. She grabbed her purse, which contained 1 credit card. Damien didn't know about an emergency card her mother had given her. She crept into Oliver's room, lifted her sleeping son from his bed, wrapped him in a blanket, and whispered, "We're going on an adventure, baby." She didn't take the private elevator. She took the service stairs 90 flights down her legs, shaking, carrying her son. She emerged into the pre-dawn chill of the city, hailed a cab, and went to the only place she could, a $200 a night extended-stay hotel miles away, paid for in cash. She woke up Oliver gently. "We're on a secret holiday, my love." He was scared but trusted her. She turned on her burner phone and called the only lawyer she'd ever heard of, who specialized in difficult divorces. She was free for exactly 8 hours. At noon, her phone rang. It was Damien. She hadn't given him the number. "You're in room 3B at the Redlin Hotel on Archer Avenue," he said. "No hello. You paid $250 in cash. You have Oliver. You have 15 minutes to bring him back before I report him kidnapped." "Damien, I'm leaving you. I'm taking Ollie." A cold, dry laugh. "You're taking nothing. You are nothing, Emma. You have no money. You have no friends. You have no power. You are a line item on my expense report. Now bring my son home." "He's my son, too. I'll see you in court." "Yes," Damien said, and the line went dead. "You will." An hour later, a sheriff's deputy served her. She wasn't being arrested for kidnapping. Yet. She was being sued. Damien Blackwood had filed an emergency petition for full, sole, and exclusive custody of Oliver Blackwood. The hearing was in 72 hours. The petition was thick. It was filled with affidavits, reports, and evidence. Affidavits from nannies she had hired, now testifying she was erratic and prone to fits of weeping. A preliminary report from a renowned child psychologist, Dr. Lena Petrova, stating that Emma showed signs of histrionic personality disorder and emotional instability, making her a potential danger to the child. And photos. Dozens of photos. Emma crying in the kitchen after an argument. Emma sleeping late, which he framed as depression and neglect. Emma in the bathroom, taking her anxiety medication. She had no idea who took them. She felt sick. The petition claimed she was a drug addict, mentally unstable, and a flight risk. Damien Blackwood wasn't just divorcing her. He was erasing her. Emma Vance was drowning. The extended-stay hotel room felt like a concrete box. Oliver, sensing her terror, had grown quiet and pale, drawing pictures of their old apartment with sad stick-figure faces. She had 4,300s to her name. A consultation with the high-profile divorce attorney she'd called confirmed her nightmare. The lawyer, a woman with a steel-grey bob and a $1,200 an hour fee, reviewed the petition. "He's papered you, Ms. Vance," the lawyer said, not unkindly. "This is a scorched earth filing. He has Dr. Petrova. She's the court's darling. She's also 2,000 an hour. The affidavits. This is a coordinated attack. Your nannies, your personal assistant, even your driver. They've all been bought." "But it's all lies," Emma cried, her voice cracking. "He's twisting everything. The medication is for mild anxiety. He caused I was crying because he told me my art degree was a waste of his oxygen." The truth, the lawyer said, steepling her fingers, is what can be proven in court. And Mr. Blackwood has just purchased his truth. My retainer to even begin to fight this is $100,000. Emma's blood ran cold. I don't have that. I know. He knows that too. He's frozen all your joint accounts. Your name is on the penthouse, but he has a prenup that gives you, let's see, a one-time severance of $500,000 payable after the divorce is final contingent on a morality clause you've already violated by fleeing the marital home. So now, what do I do? The lawyer sighed, her sharp demeanor softening for a second. You can try legal aid, but frankly, Miss Vance, you need to prepare yourself. You are walking into a nuclear war with a water pistol. He's going to take your son. Emma left the polished office in a daze. Legal aid. The words felt like a failure. She found the downtown legal aid clinic in a basement office beneath a bail bondsman. The air smelled of stale coffee and desperation. There she met Stella Jenkins. Stella was the opposite of the uptown lawyer. She was in her late 30s, with frizzy, uncontrolled hair pulled back in a clip and a blazer that looked like it had been slept in. Her desk was a mountain of paper. Blackwood, Stella said, scanning the petition. Damien Blackwood, you're married to that guy. Yes, and he's taking my son. Stella read for 10 minutes, her expression hardening. She flipped through Dr. Petrova's report, her lips curling in disgust. Histrionic personality disorder. What did she diagnose you from across the room? This is purchased garbage. And these photos, I don't know how he got them, Emma whispered. It's like he was everywhere. He is everywhere, Stella said, tapping her pen. He's a control freak. These types, they don't just want to win, they want to annihilate. Can you help me? Stella looked at Emma, really looked at her. She saw the designer clothes now rumpled the exhaustion and the pure primal fear of a mother. My caseload is full, Stella said flatly. I'm dealing with 3 evictions and a domestic violence case today. I don't have the resources to fight Blackwood's army. Emma's face crumpled. She put her head in her hands and for the first time let out a gut-wrenching, silent sob. Stella watched her for a beat. She'd seen this minus the billions a dozen times, but the arrogance of the filing, it pissed her off. Okay. Stella sighed, rolling her chair back. Okay. Stop crying. Crying won't help. He wants you to cry. He's using your crying against you. Emma looked up, her eyes red. We have 48 hours. The goal is not to win. The goal is to not lose. We need to block his emergency custody order. We need to convince the judge to order a real evaluation, not this paid-for trash. The judge is Eva Reed. She's tough. She's smart. She hates men like Blackwood. But she follows the law. If his paperwork is clean, she'll grant it. His paperwork is clean, Emma said. It's all lies, but it's clean. Then, Stella said, leaning forward, we have to get it dirty. We need to prove he is the unstable one, that he is the danger. How do we do that? He's perfect, Emma whispered. He never ever loses his temper. He's cold. He's calculating. He never yells. He just dismisses you. Everyone has a weakness, Stella muttered. His is arrogance and control. You said you didn't know how he got those photos. No, it's impossible, some of them. I was alone, completely alone. No, you weren't, Stella said, a sudden dark idea dawning. You weren't alone, he was watching you. What do you mean, like a PI? No, more personal. In the house. Think, Emma. Did he ever install a new security system, update the smart home features? Emma's mind flashed back. About a year ago, after a small security breach that was just a false alarm, he said the old system was obsolete. He had a private team from his own tech division, Blackwood Dynamics, come in. They were there for a week. He called it the Ark. Total security. Total peace of mind. Stella's blood ran cold. Oh God, he bugged his own house. But that's illegal, isn't it? It's his house, Stella said, thinking fast. He can install cameras, but if he's recording you in places where you have a reasonable expectation of privacy, like a bathroom or your personal bedroom, that's a felony, and recording audio without your consent, also a felony. The photos, one was from the master bathroom, Emma said, feeling bile rise in her throat. Okay, Stella said, her voice grim. He's arrogant, but he's not stupid. His lawyer, Arthur Kendrick, is a shark. They would never introduce illegal evidence. The photos they used, they're all from public areas of the home. The kitchen, the living room. They're establishing a pattern of surveillance. So what do? We find the cameras. I can't go back there. You don't have to. You're still connected to his network. Stella pointed to Emma's phone. That's not the burner, is it? That's your personal phone. Yes, Give it to me. Stella snatched the phone. He's tracking you with this. GPS, probably a keylogger. But if he's got a smart home system and your phone was the master controller for the lights and music. Stella's fingers flew opening settings, Wi-Fi networks, and connected device apps. She scrolled. Sonos, Lutron, Crestron, and what's this ArcNet? Emma nodded. That's what he called it. Stella tapped the app. It asked for a password. I don't know it, Emma said. Try Oliver's birthday, Stella said. Emma typed it in. Access denied. Try air, Stella muttered. Access denied. Try Blackwood Legacy, Stella suggested. Access denied. What's his obsession? Stella asked. What does he value? Himself, Emma said. Stella typed DAMIAN1. Access granted. A list of devices populated the screen. Cam 01, living room. Cam 02, kitchen. Cam 03, foyer. Cam 04, Ollie playroom. Cam 05, master bedroom. Cam 06, master bath. Cam 07, study. Cam 08, guest house, living. Cam 09, guest house, bed. Emma stopped breathing. Guest house, but that's where he made me stay after the fight. He said we were separating in-house. He wasn't just separating, Stella said, her eyes wide with a terrifying, furious energy. He was building his case. He was recording you in your most private, vulnerable moments to take your son. Oh my God, Emma whispered, collapsing back into the chair. No, Stella said, grabbing her arm. This is it. This is the water pistol. Now we just have to figure out how to turn it into a cannon. To understand the monster, you have to understand his obsession. Damien Blackwood wasn't just a businessman, he was a controller. He didn't build an empire, he built a fortress. And inside that fortress, he was king, and his word was law. The ArcNet system hadn't been a security upgrade, it had been a loyalty test. A year prior, Damien had been closing a hostile takeover of a rival tech firm. It was brutal, and leaks were springing from his inner circle. He became pathologically paranoid. He trusted no one. Not his board, not his staff, and certainly not his wife, who he'd always seen as an emotional, unpredictable variable. He'd tasked his private R&D division, the arm of Blackwood Dynamics, that built military-grade surveillance tech, with a personal project. He wanted total information awareness. At home. They installed microscopic military-grade camera lenses in everything. The smoke detectors, the bezels of the smart TVs, the digital clocks, even the brushed steel air vents. They were all hardwired to a central server in a climate-controlled bunker room in the penthouse basement, a room only Damien could access via thumbprint and retinal scan. The system was his God's eye view. He'd watch the feeds from his office on the 100th floor. He watched Emma. He watched her talk to her mother on the phone, noting her disloyal complaints. He watched her cry after he belittled her, logging it as instability. He watched her interact with Oliver, searching for any flaw, any moment of impatience, any sign of weakness. He wasn't just a husband. He was a warden. When Emma had dared to throw Oliver that unsanctioned birthday party, Damien hadn't just been angry, he'd been insulted. It was a breakdown in his system. His response was immediate. He would remove the variable. He would take his heir and discard the flawed vessel. He had Dr. Petrova on his private payroll. She was a reputation management psychologist, specializing in smoothing over the personal difficulties of the 1%. She owed him for covering up a nasty gambling addiction problem years ago. A single phone call was all it took. "Lena," he'd said, his voice calm, "Mrs. Blackwood is having a breakdown. I need a report for a family court intervention. For Oliver's protection." "Of course, Damien," Dr. Petrova had replied smoothly. "What are her symptoms? Hysteria, deep depression, paranoia, potential for self-harm. You know the script. I'll have a draft by morning." He'd called his chief of staff. "Activate the severance protocols for the nanny and the driver. I want signed, notarized affidavits on my desk by 5 p.m. They will state that Mrs. Blackwood has been erratic, neglectful, and emotionally volatile. Their severance package will be generous, contingent on their complete cooperation." He'd even paid off one of Emma's few approved friends, a woman named Megan, whose boutique was funded by a no-interest loan from Blackwood Investments. He'd manufactured his evidence with the precision of a factory assembly line. And the photos he'd sat at his 4K monitor fast-forwarding through months of footage of his wife's private life. He'd pause, screenshot, and label. Emma Vance, crying uncontrollably. Kitchen October 10. JP Emma Vance refusing to get out of bed master Nav02. JPG, Emma Vance ingesting, unknown, pills master bath, Nav03. JPG. It was her prescribed anti-anxiety medicine. He handed this pristine, curated package of lies to Arthur Kendrick, his lawyer. Kendrick, a man with a $20 million retainer, didn't flinch. "This is airtight, Damien. She'll be declared unfit before she can even hire a lawyer." "Good," Damien had said. "I want it done." This was the machine Emma and Stella were now facing. Back in the legal aid office, Stella was vibrating with rage. "He's not just recording. He's logging. He's been planning this for months. This wasn't a reaction to you leaving. You leaving just accelerated his timeline. So he has footage of everything," Emma whispered, horrified. "Of me? In the bathroom? In bed?" "Yes," Stella said. "And he's a felony voyeur. But he controls the server. We can't access the footage from this app. We can only see the camera list. He's not stupid enough to allow a remote live feed or access to the recordings. So, we're stuck? No. Stella said, a slow, dangerous smile spreading across her face. He's given us the weapon. He put the list of cameras right in the app. He's bragging. And more importantly, he has introduced evidence from this very system into his petition. Stella pointed to the photos of Emma in the kitchen and living room. This is our opening, Stella said. In law, there's a principle called opening the door. You can't show the jury a part of the evidence and then hide the rest. You can't show a text message and not the whole conversation. Damien Blackwood and Arthur Kendrick have just opened the door. How? They've submitted photos from Cam 01 living room and Cam 02 kitchen to prove you're unstable. We are going to argue that to see the full context of those photos, the court must see the entire unedited footage from all the cameras on that list. He'll never agree, Emma said. He'll fight it. It's his private security system. He'll fight it, Stella agreed. And that's what we want. We want him to fight. Because what does he have to hide? We're going to make a motion to subpoena the entire hard drive from ArcNet, not just for the last week, for the last year. Emma's eyes widened. But what if there's footage of me times I was a bad mother, times I did yell at Ollie. I'm not perfect. He would have already used it, Stella snapped. If he had a single second of you hitting Ollie or screaming at him or passing out drunk, it would be Exhibit A. The fact that he's resorting to crying in the kitchen and taking anxiety meds means he has nothing else. All that footage, all those terabytes of data, they don't show you being a bad mom. What do they show? Emma asked. They show him, Stella said, her voice dropping. They show his abuse, his coldness, his control. They show the context. They show him driving you to tears, and then like a sociopath screenshotting it for his files. And the other cameras, Emma said, thinking of the bathroom, the bedroom. That's the trap, Stella said. Kendrick will see our motion and he will panic. He'll object, citing privacy. He'll try to quash the subpoena. But he's the one who submitted the first photos. Judge Reed. She's smart. She'll see the objection for what it is, the concealment of evidence. And if he refuses contempt of court, if he deletes the footage, spoliation of evidence, we win. And if he hands it over, then we pray, Stella said. We pray that in his mountain of footage he got sloppy. He's arrogant. He thinks he's untouchable. He thinks he curated his evidence perfectly. But he's a man who installed a camera in his own study. He's so obsessed with watching others, he never considered that his own weapon could be turned against him. Stella stood up and grabbed her briefcase. We have a hearing. Let's go to war. The Honorable Judge. Eva Reed's courtroom was old, panelled in dark wood, and smelled of floor wax and old paper. It was a room that demanded silence. Judge Reed, a stern African-American woman in her 60s, with a reputation for suffering no fools, was known by the bar as the Iron Gavel. She despised media circuses, and the presence of two discreet but obvious reporters in the back row already had her in a foul mood. Damien Blackwood sat at the plaintiff's table, looking less like a father in a custody battle and more like a CEO at a hostile board meeting. He was flanked by Arthur Kendrick and two junior associates, their table, a fortress of leather briefcases and file binders. Emma and Stella sat at the defendant's table. They had one briefcase and a single battered laptop. The power differential was so stark, it was almost a caricature. We are here. Judge Reed began, her voice booming, on the emergency petition of Mr. Damien Blackwood for the sole custody of the minor child, Oliver Blackwood. Mr. Kendrick, you may begin." Kendrick rose smooth and reptilian. "Your Honor, this is a matter of grave urgency. The child Oliver is in imminent danger. His mother, the defendant, Ms. Emma Vance, is suffering from a severe and untreated psychological collapse." For 20 minutes, Kendrick laid out the case. He was brilliant. He wove a narrative of a loving, concerned father, forced to take drastic action. He presented the affidavits from the nannies. He presented the photos of Emma weeping, which he framed as manic episodes. Then he called his star witness to the stand for the preliminary hearing, Dr. Lena Petrova. Dr. Petrova was the picture of empathy and professionalism. She spoke in soft clinical tones about patterns of behavior. "Based on my review of the evidence provided by Mr. Blackwood," Dr. Petrova said, "and my phone observation of Ms. Vance, it is my professional opinion that she exhibits classic signs of histrionic and borderline personality disorders. Her emotional lability makes her a potential danger to the child's welfare." "A danger, doctor?" Kendrick pressed. "Yes. A mother in this state is a flight risk, a suicide risk, and potentially a risk to the child's physical safety. I strongly recommend immediate removal of the child to the care of his father, the stable party, pending a full 90-day psychiatric evaluation of Ms. Vance." Damien Blackwood nodded gravely, the very picture of a heartbroken husband. It was brutal. It was effective. Emma was visibly shaking, and Stella had to put a hand on her arm. "Thank you, doctor," Kendrick said, sitting down. "The plaintiff rests for the emergency motion." Judge Reed looked over at the defendant's table. "Ms. Jenkins, your response." Stella Jenkins stood. Her blazer was still rumpled. She looked tiny next to Kendrick. "Your Honor," Stella said, her voice clear and strong. "The defense would first like to address the evidence presented, specifically plaintiff's exhibits 4, 5, and 6, the photographs of my client." "What about them, Ms. Jenkins?" "They were taken without my client's consent by a surveillance system inside the marital home. A system Mr. Blackwood installed. These photos are the entire basis for Dr. Petrova's remote diagnosis." Kendrick was on his feet. "Objection relevance, Ms. Vance lived in the home. There is no expectation of privacy in a common area kitchen." "Overruled," Judge Reed snapped. "Sit down, Mr. Kendrick. I'll be the judge of relevance. Continue, Ms. Jenkins." Mr. Blackwood has, by his own admission, a 24/7 multi-camera surveillance system in his home. He has presented 3 carefully selected still images from this system as proof of my client's instability. But these images are snapshots devoid of context. What happened right before that photo of my client crying? Did Mr. Blackwood perhaps just tell her that her entire life was meaningless? Did he threaten her? We don't know. Stella walked to the judge's bench. "Therefore, Your Honor, we move to compel. We demand Mr. Blackwood produce the entire unedited video and audio recordings from his ArcNet security system, from all cameras, for the past 6 months." The air went out of the room. Kendrick's smug expression vanished, replaced by a flash of panic. "Objection," he thundered. "This is an outrageous bad faith fishing expedition. The system contains proprietary data. It covers Mr. Blackwood's private study, his personal affairs. It is a massive invasion of my client's privacy." "Your client, Mr. Kendrick," Stella fired back, "was the one who invaded my client's privacy and then introduced the fruits of that invasion into this courtroom. He has opened the door, Your Honor. He cannot be allowed to present a single curated frame and then claim the rest of the film is private. The only way to verify Dr. Petrova's claims and Mr. Blackwood's allegations is to see the full context of what has been happening in that home. She's right, Judge Reed said simply. Kendrick looked stunned. Your Honor, you can't have it both ways, Mr. Kendrick. You can't use the camera when it suits you and then hide it when it doesn't. You've made a very serious allegation against Ms. Vance, backed by photos from this system. I am very interested in seeing the context you're so desperate to hide. Your Honor, the sheer volume of data is your client's problem, not mine, and not Ms. Vance's. The system contains cameras in private areas. Kendrick argued, his voice lowering. My client's personal bedroom, his bathroom. And Ms. Vance's, Stella interjected, like Camdo 6 Master Bath, where he photographed her taking her legally prescribed medication, or Cam 09 Guest House Bed, where he forced her to sleep. Damien Blackwood, for the first time, looked up. His eyes, fixed on Emma, were no longer cold. They were murderous. Judge Reed's gavel slammed down, making everyone jump. Mr. Kendrick, the judge said, her voice ice. You are skating on very, very thin ice. You have entered evidence from a system that appears to be at best a gross violation of marital privacy, and at worst felony voyeurism. Now you're telling me you want me to ignore the rest of the footage. We retract the photographs as evidence, Kendrick said hastily. Too late, Stella shouted. They're already in the petition. They're the basis of Dr. Petrova's report. You can't unring that bell. Ms. Jenkins is correct, Judge Reed said. I am ordering the full, unedited, unadulterated hard drive from the ArcNet server to be delivered to this courtroom into my exclusive custody by 9 a.m. tomorrow. If 1 second of that footage is missing, deleted or altered, I will hold Mr. Blackwood in summary contempt, strike his entire petition, and I will refer you, Mr. Kendrick, to the State Bar for disciplinary action. Do I make myself clear? Crystal, Kendrick seethed. In the meantime, the judge continued, I am not impressed by this petition. It reeks of malice. I am not granting your emergency motion, Mr. Blackwood. I am, however, ordering a temporary visitation schedule. Ms. Vance will have custody of Oliver on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Mr. Blackwood will have him Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. We will alternate Sundays. This order is in effect until this hearing reconvenes tomorrow at 10 a.m., after I have had my clerk begin a review of this footage. She slammed her gavel. We are adjourned. Emma and Stella packed their single laptop. Emma was shaking. We won. We didn't win, Stella said grimly. We just survived. The real fight is tomorrow. Now they're going to go back, and Kendrick is going to spend all night trying to find a way to legally destroy that evidence. Or worse, he'll find something on those tapes we didn't count on. Damien Blackwood stood up. He didn't look at his lawyer. He looked straight at Emma. His face was a mask of polite fury. He mouthed 2 words at her so subtly the judge couldn't see. You're dead. The 90th floor penthouse was no longer calm. For the first time, Damien Blackwood was raging. You idiot! He roared at Arthur Kendrick. The junior associates had been dismissed. It was just the 2 of them in the vast white living room. Me. Kendrick shot back, his own reptilian calm finally breaking. You're the one who bugged his own house like a B-movie villain. You told me the photos were clean. You told me they were from a nanny cam in the kitchen. You didn't tell me you had a camera in her bathroom. You didn't tell me about the guest house. You didn't tell me the system was a digital fortress of felonies. That little legal aid skunk played you, she played us. Damien paced his $5,000 suit jacket, thrown on the floor. The judge. Reed. She's biased. She's taking the woman's side. She's a judge, Damien, and you just handed the other side a nuclear bomb. We have to give her the hard drive. If we don't, you lose, right now. You lose Ollie. Then wipe it, Damien snarled. Wipe the whole thing. They say it crashed. A power surge. Spoliation, Kendrick screamed. She explicitly warned us she'll have a forensic team all over it. The moment they find a single deleted file, it's over. She'll grant Emma full custody, and she'll hand the entire case to the DA. You'll be indicted for illegal surveillance and tampering with evidence before lunch. Damien stopped pacing. He was trapped. His own system, his perfect arc, had become his prison. Okay, he said, his voice dropping back to its terrifying calm. Okay. The drive. Where is it? In the server room, where you built it. We go through it, tonight. We find everything. Every clip. We need to know exactly what's on there. There's a year of footage, Damien. From 9 cameras, it's petabytes of data. I don't care, Damien said. We review everything. They descended to the basement server room. It was cold, the hum of the fans a steady drone. Damien placed his thumb, then his eye to the scanners. The heavy steel door hissed open. Inside, a rack of black servers blinked with steady green lights. This is it, Damien said. Kendrick plugged in a monitor and keyboard. How do we search? The system is logged. Damien said, his fingers flying. Every file is time-stamped and tagged by camera. I was meticulous. For the next 8 hours, they worked. They drank stale coffee, and the room filled with the scent of their panic. They watched everything. They watched Damien berating Emma for buying the wrong brand of asparagus. They watched Damien telling Oliver that crying is for the weak. They watched Damien in his study, calmly shredding a piece of art Emma had bought, calling it sentimental trash. It was a comprehensive, high-definition record of his own psychological abuse. This is bad. Kendrick muttered, his face ashen. This is a portrait of a monster. It's context, Damien snapped. I am a disciplined man. I demand excellence. That is not a crime. It is in family court, you fool, Kendrick spat. Then they found it. The file was KM08, Guest House Living. The date was 3 weeks ago, the night he'd banished Emma to the guest house. The video was clear. The audio captured by the microphone in the smart TV was pristine. It showed Emma crying on the sofa. It showed Damien entering. He's not yelling. He's calm, holding a file. I've drawn this up, his voice says on the recording. It's a post-nuptial amendment. You will cede all custodial rights to Oliver. In exchange, I will deposit $10 million in an offshore account in your name. You will leave. You will go back to your pathetic art galleries. You will never contact me or my son again. Emma on the video looks up, horrified. You're trying to buy my son. I'm trying to save him. Damien's voice replies, cold as ice. From you, from your weakness. This is a good deal, Emma. Take it. Go to hell, Damien, he sighs. Very well. Then I will proceed with Plan B. I will destroy you. I will use this. He gestures chillingly to the air right at the hidden camera. He knew it was there. I will use this entire system to prove you are an unfit, unstable drug addict. I have Dr. Petrova on call. I have your nannies on the payroll. I will bury you, Emma. You will have nothing. You will be nothing. And you will never see Oliver again. He places the file on the table and walks out. Kendrick stared at the screen, his mouth open. He slowly turned to his client. You knew the camera was there. You knew you were being recorded while you admitted to fabricating evidence and blackmailing your wife. Damien was pale. I was going to use her reaction. The part after, where she throws a vase. I was going to edit out my offer. I forgot. You forgot. Kendrick repeated, his voice hollow. You forgot you'd recorded yourself committing 3 different felonies. Delete it, Damien roared. Delete that file. I can't, Kendrick yelled back. It's a continuous server log. If I delete that one file, the timestamp log will have a gap. The judge's tech will find it in seconds. We're dead. Kendrick stopped. He stared at the screen. He rewound the footage. He watched Damien gesture at the camera. He gestures. He says, I will use this system. Kendrick's mind, the sharp reptilian mind, was racing. What if we don't hide it? What if we reframe it? We're dead if we hide it. But what if we use it? We claim you knew she was unstable, and you were trying to create a record to shock her into behaving. That you knew she was unstable, and you were staging this to get her to a doctor. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, Damien said. It's all we've got, Kendrick said. It's better than handing them a signed confession. Kendrick kept scrolling. His eyes landed on another file, CAM-07 study. The timestamp was from the day after Emma left. What's this? Kendrick asked. He clicked it. The video showed Damien alone in his study on his speakerphone. Damien's voice. And the bonus for Dr. Petrova, is it in the account? A different voice, his PA. Michael, yes sir, the consulting fee was processed. Damien, good. And the friend, Megan. Michael, the loan for her boutique has been forgiven as requested. Damien, excellent. Their affidavits are strong. Michael, ironclad, sir. They both state Ms. Vance has been a consistent mess for 6 months. Damien, perfect. That's all, Michael. The call ends. Damien sips his scotch, looks at a photo of Oliver on his desk, and smiles. Kendrick didn't say anything. He just stared. Damien Blackwood, a man obsessed with recording everyone else's disloyalty, had, in his ultimate act of hubris, recorded himself conspiring to suborn perjury, bribe witnesses and defraud the court. He was so arrogant, he kept his own cameras running while he committed his crimes. Kendrick slowly reached over and unplugged the monitor. Arthur, Damien said, his voice small. Kendrick began packing his briefcase. Arthur, what are you doing? We have to fix this. There is no we, Kendrick said, his voice flat. I am your lawyer. I am not your co-conspirator. You have on that hard drive a detailed record of your own implosion. You didn't just open the door, Damien. You set the entire house on fire and locked us inside. So what do we do? Kendrick said, snapping his briefcase shut. I'm going to advise you to plead the fifth. As for this hard drive, we have no choice. We have to turn it over. It will destroy me. It already has, Kendrick replied. My only job now is to try and make sure You're just a disgraced billionaire, and not a convicted one, though I'd say the odds on that just plummeted. Damien sank into the chair, the green lights of the server rack blinking on his pale, defeated face. The controller had lost control. The next morning, the courtroom was electric. The tension was so thick you could taste it. Judge Eva Reed sat on her bench, her face unreadable. A large 80-inch monitor had been set up facing the gallery, dark and ominous. A court technician sat at a table nearby, a single external hard drive plugged into his console. It was the ArcNet server drive. Arthur Kendrick looked like a man who hadn't slept in a year. His suit was immaculate, but his eyes were haunted. Damien Blackwood sat beside him, rigid, staring at the empty screen. Emma and Stella were at their table. Emma was trembling so hard she could barely hold her water glass. What did they find, Stella? What if they found a way around it? They didn't, Stella whispered. Her eyes fixed on Kendrick. Look at him. He knows he's lost. He just doesn't know how lost yet. We are back in session, Judge Reed announced. My clerk and I have begun a review of the server data provided by the plaintiff. The volume is substantial. However, Ms. Jenkins, in a morning motion, requested the court review 2 specific files first in the interest of time. Given the nature of this emergency hearing, I have agreed. Kendrick half rose. Your Honor, we object. The defense cannot be allowed to cherry-pick files any more than we can. Mr. Kendrick, Judge Reed said, her voice dripping with acid. Ms. Jenkins has provided timestamps for files she believes provide the context you were so worried about. I'm going to see them. Sit down. He sat. Mr. Hodges, the judge said to the tech. Please play file KM08, guest house, living, time-stamped October 12th. The screen flickered to life. The courtroom saw the guest house. They saw Emma, her face red from crying. Then they saw Damien Blackwood enter holding a file. The audio was perfect. I've drawn this up, a post-nuptial amendment. You will cede all custodial rights to Oliver. In exchange, I will deposit $10 million. A collective gasp went through the courtroom. The reporters in the back were scribbling so fast their pens were smoking. Damien Blackwood didn't move. The courtroom watched as Emma refused. They heard her say, "Go to hell." And then the moment of truth. They watched Damien's face harden. They heard him say, "Then I will proceed with Plan B. I will destroy you. I will lose this entire system to prove you are an unfit, unstable drug addict. I have Dr. Petrova on call. I have your nannies on the payroll. I will bury you, Emma." The video played on. Damien left. Emma, finally alone, picked up a vase and hurled it at the wall, screaming in a fit of rage and grief. The screen went dark. The courtroom was utterly silent. Kendrick stood up, his voice hoarse. Your Honor, that video clearly proves our point. Look at her. That is the instability we've been talking about. She's violent. She's hysterical. My client provoked her. Yes, but it was a desperate attempt to get her to show her true colors for her own good. It was a valiant, desperate swoon. But Judge Reed wasn't looking at Kendrick. She was looking at Emma, her expression filled with a dawning, terrible understanding. So your client, Judge Reed said, her voice dangerously quiet, blackmailed his wife, threatened to fabricate evidence, and admitted to having an expert witness on call just to get a reaction. Is that your testimony, Mr. Kendrick? My client was desperate, to protect his son. I see. Judge Reed turned to the tech. Mr. Hodges, thank you. Now please play the second file Ms. Jenkins requested. Damien Blackwood looked up confused. He thought the guest house video was the kill shot. He looked at Kendrick. Kendrick just stared at his legal pad, his face grey. File KM07 study, the judge commanded. Time stamped October 8th. The screen lit up again. This time it was Damien's private study. Rich mahogany, a wall of glass overlooking the city. Damien was on his speakerphone. His voice clear as a bell echoed through the courtroom. And the bonus for Dr. Petrova. Is it in the account? In the gallery, Dr. Lena Petrova, who had been ordered to attend, stood up as if she'd been electrocuted. Yes, sir. The consulting fee was processed. Good. And the friend, Megan. The loan for her boutique has been forgiven as requested. Excellent. Their affidavits are strong. Ironclad, sir. They both state Ms. Vance has been a consistent mess for 6 months. Perfect. That's all, Michael. The video ended. The silence that followed was not like the first. It was a heavy, suffocating silence. Damien Blackwood was staring at the dark screen. He hadn't known. He hadn't remembered that file. He turned his face a mask of pure, uncomprehending horror to his lawyer. Kendrick just closed his eyes. Judge Eva Reed slowly took off her glasses. She polished them on her robe. She put them back on. She looked at Damien Blackwood. Mr. Blackwood, she said, her voice completely devoid of emotion. You are without a doubt the most arrogant and self-destructive man who has ever set foot in my courtroom. She turned to the bailiff. Deputy, take Mr. Blackwood into custody. What? Damien roared, jolting to his feet. On what charge? For contempt of this court. Judge Reed's voice was now a thunderclap. You sat there. You let your high-priced lawyer build a case based on bribed witnesses and fabricated reports. You perjured yourself in your petition. She stopped, gathering herself. This, she announced to the room, is no longer a custody hearing. This is a crime scene. Dr. Petrova, you are to remain where you are. You are also in contempt, and I am referring you to the medical board for immediate revocation of your license and to the district attorney for perjury. Mr. Kendrick stood, shaking. Your Honor, I was not aware. I am an officer of the court. I would never. You'll have plenty of time to explain that to the Bar Association, Mr. Kendrick. I am referring this entire matter, this entire hard drive, to the DA's office for immediate criminal investigation into Mr. Blackwood, his associates, and you, Mr. Kendrick, for conspiracy to commit perjury, subornation of perjury, bribery, illegal surveillance, and God knows what else they'll find in this ark of yours. 2 deputies grabbed Damien's arms. The billionaire, the master of the universe, looked small. You can't do this to me, he shrieked, his mask of control shattered. I am Damien Blackwood. Not in here, you're not, Judge Reed said. In here you are a man who tried to destroy an innocent woman and steal her child. And you used your own pathologic need for control to do it. You were so busy watching everyone else, you never thought to watch yourself. She turned to Emma, her expression finally fully softening. Ms. Vance, I am granting you immediate, full soul and exclusive legal and physical custody of your son, Oliver Blackwood. Emma gasped, her hands flying to her mouth, tears streaming. I am issuing a 1,000-yard permanent restraining order against Mr. Blackwood, barring him from contacting you or the minor child indefinitely. The court will assign a professional neutral monitor for any future potential visitation if Mr. Blackwood ever proves he is not a danger to his son. But as of now, he has no rights. She looked at Damien, who was being cuffed. You are a disgrace, sir. Get him out of my courtroom. Damien Blackwood, the man who owned the Skyline, was dragged out of the room, shouting, "This isn't over, this isn't over." But it was. Emma collapsed into Stella's arms, sobbing in relief. You did it, Emma cried. You did it. No, Stella said, patting her back, her own eyes wet. He did it. He was just arrogant enough to film it for us. The fall of Damien Blackwood was not a tumble, it was a demolition. The Chicago Tribune and the New York Times ran the story on the front page. The ArcNet server, now in the hands of the district attorney, was a treasure trove of corporate and personal crime. The DA didn't just find evidence of the custody fraud. They found Damien illegally recording board meetings. They found him blackmailing a city councilman. They found evidence of insider trading discussed nonchalantly in the very study where he'd hung a Picasso. Damien Blackwood was indicted on 27 counts, including fraud, bribery, illegal surveillance, and conspiracy. He was facing 30 years in prison. Arthur Kendrick, in a desperate attempt to save himself, testified against his former client. He was disbarred anyway. Dr. Lena Petrova lost her license and was convicted of perjury, serving 6 months in a state prison. Blackwood Dynamics, the company built on Damien's infallible image, collapsed. Its stock flatlined. The board ousted him, and the company was carved up and sold for parts. The Blackwood Tower went into receivership and was renamed, and Emma. She didn't get the penthouse. She didn't get the $10 million. The prenup, in the end, was all she had, and it was tied up in Damien's bankruptcy. She didn't care. She and Stella Jenkins used the $500,000 severance, which Stella finally clawed back from the wreckage, not for a new penthouse, but to start a non-profit. They called it the Jenkins Vance Project. It was a legal aid fund specifically for women and children trapped in high-conflict, high-wealth custody battles, women who, like Emma, were facing a nuclear war with a water pistol. The story ends 1 year later. Emma Vance lives in a small 2-bedroom apartment in a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood. It's cluttered. The furniture is from IKEA. There are drawings taped to the refrigerator. It's 5 p.m. Emma is in the kitchen, her hair in a messy bun, flour on her face. Oliver is standing on a chair next to her. They are baking a cake. It's a bright, messy, chaotic blue. It's perfect, Ollie. Emma laughs as he smears a huge glob of frosting on her nose. It's messy, he giggles. Messy is good, she says, kissing the top of his head. Messy is real. There are no cameras. There are no nannies. There is no schedule. There is just a mother and her son in a home that isn't a statement or a fortress or a cage. It's just a home. Emma Vance had lost all the money, all the prestige, and all the power, and in doing so, she had finally, truly gotten everything back. In the end, Damien Blackwood's empire wasn't destroyed by a business rival, a market crash, or a legal loophole. It was destroyed by his own reflection. He built a system to trap his wife, but he only succeeded in trapping himself. His obsession with control was the very thing that made him lose it. Emma Vance didn't have his money, or his power, but she had something he'd forgotten about, the truth. And this time she had the receipts to prove it. What do you think about this story? Do you believe justice was served? It's a reminder that sometimes the most sophisticated security system can't protect a person from themselves. Thank you so much for listening. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, and be sure to subscribe to the channel for more true life dramas, just like this one. We read all your comments, so let us know your thoughts below.
Mistress destroyed millionaire husband's family, but pregnant wife's return changed everything. No one foresaw how easily wealth, ambition, and forbidden passion could entangle to destroy a once perfect marriage. A single spark of betrayal was all it took for speculation to become undeniable truth, scandalizing the affluent circles of Los Angeles. At the center stood a millionaire whose empire stretched from Beverly Hills to Dubai, confronted by haunting accusations that shattered trust within the walls of his lavish estate. Even close friends whispered in hushed tones for fear of fueling the growing rumor mill. Still, in the darkest hour, a pregnant wife's unannounced return carried the power to rewrite destiny or obliterate it completely. Jonathan Green appeared destined for success from the moment he set foot in the world. Born in a modest suburb of Houston, Texas, he witnessed struggle and resilience up close. His father, Marcus Green, was a Vietnam veteran who worked multiple jobs after returning stateside, determined that his children would have better futures. Jonathan's mother, Linda, juggled a graveyard shift at the local hospital, saving every penny she could to keep the family afloat. While Jonathan grew up with hand-me-downs and rationed groceries, there was no shortage of love. Marcus and Linda devoted themselves to ensuring he received an education, something neither had completed themselves. From an early age, Jonathan dazzled his teachers with remarkable aptitude, particularly in business and mathematics. He felt drawn to the idea of entrepreneurship, observing with keen interest whenever small businesses around town opened their doors. On weekends, he devoured biographies of business titans, Sam Walton, Steve Jobs, Oprah Winfrey, individuals who rose from adversity to transform entire industries. His life took a pivotal turn in his high school's final year. While awaiting college admissions results, Jonathan entered a statewide entrepreneurial pitch competition. He created a business plan for a community-centric fitness center, offering not just workout equipment but also childcare, nutritional advice, and counseling services. This approach was radical for the time, blending social outreach and profit-based enterprise. He didn't win first place. However, a local real estate investor named Mark Johnson, who was on the judging panel, noticed the strength of Jonathan's ideas and offered him a mentorship opportunity. By the time Jonathan graduated from the University of Texas with honors, he had already launched a small personal training business in Austin. It struggled through the early days. He often ate instant noodles to save on expenses, but grit became his ally. Within 2 years, he secured enough savings and small investments to open Green's Wellness, a full-fledged gym that rapidly attracted clientele. Buoyed by local success, Jonathan expanded, forging partnerships with nutrition experts and mental health counselors. In an era of hyper-competitive fitness chains, his distinctive holistic approach carved out a niche market. Yet, while his professional star rose, it was his personal life that gave him unwavering purpose. He had started dating Catherine Taylor in college, drawn to her warmth, empathy, and quiet intelligence. Catherine had grown up in a middle-class household in San Diego, where her father taught high school literature and her mother worked as a freelance artist. She had inherited her father's love for reading, which endowed her with a soft-spoken wisdom that balanced Jonathan's ambition perfectly. Their relationship was solid, built on deep mutual respect. She offered him stability when his boundless drive sometimes threatened to overshoot practicality. They married soon after Jonathan expanded to a second gym. The wedding itself was small, a gathering of close friends and family on the outskirts of Austin. Mark Johnson, the investor who had first spotted Jonathan's potential, was there to witness the union. Within a few years, Jonathan's endeavors evolved into a multi-state chain of fitness centers stretching from Texas to Colorado. Articles in business journals lauded Green's wellness as a model for the future of integrated fitness, praising its combination of high-end equipment, mental health resources, and child-friendly zones. Nevertheless, with success came new temptations. Jonathan was traveling more frequently, forging alliances with major investors, exploring expansions, and meeting people who existed in spheres of greater wealth and influence than he'd previously known. Catherine supported him wholeheartedly, though deep down, she hoped for a time when he would slow down enough to savor life alongside her. By the time Jonathan hit his 30s, his chain of integrated fitness centers was valued at over $200 million. He and Catherine relocated to Beverly Hills. Nestled in the canyons overlooking Los Angeles, their Spanish-style estate boasted 10 bedrooms, a sprawling garden, and a lavish outdoor pool that had once been featured in a home design magazine. That same year, Catherine gave birth to their son, Henry. Despite her exhaustion, Catherine glowed with maternal fulfillment, fervently hoping that this arrival would encourage Jonathan to take a step back from his non-stop lifestyle. But ambition never loosened its grip on Jonathan. New expansions beckoned, a set of boutique gyms on the East Coast, partnerships with wellness bloggers in Europe, and even the possibility of going public. Conferences, corporate events, and exclusive parties soon dominated Jonathan's schedule. Catherine adapted in the beginning. She managed the household, curated philanthropic events, and cultivated a supportive environment for Henry. The shift in their marriage was subtle. Instead of gazing lovingly into each other's eyes at dinner, they found themselves constantly checking phones or discussing business strategies between bites. Catherine took pride in her role. She believed wholeheartedly in Jonathan's dream and wanted him to achieve greatness. There were fleeting, tender moments, Henry's bedtime rituals, holiday getaways to Hawaii, or spontaneous date nights. But such intervals grew increasingly rare. Finally, Catherine summoned the courage to address her concerns. One evening, after Henry's first birthday party, she confessed her fears of drifting apart. Jonathan listened earnestly, recognizing the truth in her words. He promised to spend fewer nights at corporate dinners, fewer weekends at exclusive golf outings with potential investors. For a short while, it worked. He was more present, more affectionate. Catherine harbored cautious optimism that their relationship would withstand the pressures of growing wealth and business commitments. At the beginning of Jonathan's push into the international market, he needed a potent legal mind to navigate the complexities. His usual team had served him well, but each new country's regulations were a labyrinth. That was when Mark Johnson, who remained his trusted advisor, recommended an exceptional young attorney named Bianca Street James. Bianca, only in her late 20s, had a striking reputation in corporate law circles. She had attended Harvard Law on scholarship, dazzled her professors, and leapfrogged from a junior associate to partner in record time at a revered Los Angeles firm. The first meeting took place in a newly leased conference room at a glossy high-rise in Century City. Catherine was not present, busy with Henry at home. Jonathan sat across from a woman with raven black hair tied in a sleek bun, a crisp designer blazer, and a remarkable poise that belied her relatively young age. She spoke with quiet confidence, articulating a vision for how to protect Jonathan's interests abroad, structure licensing agreements, and handle shareholder expansions if he ever decided to go public. There was no immediate, obvious spark of romantic tension. Rather, Jonathan was impressed by her intellect and composure. Over the next few months, Bianca became indispensable to the company. She outlined global compliance roadmaps, streamlined existing legal frameworks, and deftly mediated disputes among potential partners. Jonathan often praised her intuitive brilliance, convinced she was a linchpin for his company's future success. Catherine heard about Bianca, though only in the context of Jonathan's legal expansions. She was pleased that her husband had found someone competent to lighten his load. However, at social gatherings, certain whispers circulated Bianca was known to be alluring, a lawyer whose charm extended beyond the courtroom. Several acquaintances teased Jonathan half-jokingly about being careful around such a captivating professional. He brushed off the suggestions, claiming that nothing overshadowed his devotion to Catherine. Bianca's involvement grew deeper. She began traveling with Jonathan for critical negotiations in New York, London, and later Dubai, where a potential joint venture with Middle Eastern investors promised unimaginable returns. Catherine found it odd that her husband's previously sporadic text messages became even more irregular. When she asked him about it, Jonathan insisted the workload tripled once foreign backers entered the picture. He was quick to dismiss any suggestion of impropriety, reaffirming his love for Catherine and Henry. But Catherine's unease only heightened when Jonathan didn't return home for Henry's second birthday. She had arranged a small celebration, expecting Jonathan's flight to land that afternoon. A last-minute negotiation crisis in Dubai derailed his plans. He FaceTimed Henry from a sterile hotel lobby, apologizing repeatedly, promising to make it up to them. Catherine forced a smile in front of Henry. After the call, she locked herself in the bedroom to cry. This was the first major milestone Jonathan had missed, and the sting of disappointment was profound. Bianca's existence loomed larger in Catherine's mind. During that same period, she began seeing more pictures of Jonathan in tabloids, rubbing shoulders with celebrities, attending black tie events in European capitals, often with a woman by his side who could only be Bianca. Although Catherine tried to reassure herself that these appearances were purely business, doubt seeped in. She had never seen Jonathan look so vibrant and engaged in photos, as though a new passion fueled him. Could it be the excitement of the big deals? Or was it something or someone else? What started innocently late dinners in foreign locales, intense strategy sessions that stretched into the early hours, slipped into uncharted territory. One fateful night in Paris, Jonathan and Bianca were celebrating a successful meeting with potential partners. A wave of relief and exhilaration pulsed through Jonathan as they sealed a deal believed to be worth over $100 million. After multiple glasses of wine at a Michelin-starred restaurant, they wandered along the Seine. Paris at night felt dreamlike. The city glimmered with romance. Conversation turned personal, weaving between stories of their past struggles and the pressures they each faced. By midnight, the tension was palpable. Jonathan felt both liberated and weighed down freedom from the constant hustle of American boardrooms, yet guilt for the attraction he sensed. A part of him recognized the boundary he was about to cross, but reason slipped away in the face of intoxication and Bianca's unwavering admiration. Beneath a flickering street lamp, they kissed, a fleeting moment laced with both passion and foreboding. That one slip became a pivotal turning point. Jonathan told himself it was a mistake, a drunken lapse in judgment, but as days turned into weeks, the emotional intimacy with Bianca deepened. Their phone calls stretched from legal briefs into personal confessions. Their text messages carried subtle suggestions of longing. A secret room in Jonathan's heart formed, one that Catherine neither knew nor had access to. At first, Jonathan's guilt made him more attentive when he returned to Beverly Hills. He lavished Catherine with extravagant gifts, handcrafted jewelry, designer bags, limited edition perfumes. He redoubled his involvement at home, cooking dinner for her and Henry on a few occasions. Yet, these abrupt gestures felt performative to Catherine. She appreciated the attention but couldn't shake a sense of something lurking beneath the surface. Multiple times, Catherine found Jonathan's phone locked tight, placed face-down practices that were new. Before, Jonathan had nothing to hide. She could pick up his phone freely if it rang. Now he clutched it, reacting nervously whenever she glanced toward it. Late-night text alerts, suspicious disclaimers about time zone differences, and occasional hushed phone conversations behind closed doors all fueled Catherine's anxiety. She tried asking him directly. Jonathan denied any wrongdoing, explaining away his secrecy as a necessity for high-stakes negotiations. Catherine, wanting to trust her husband, tried to subdue her mounting worries. She told herself that working with international investors necessitated confidentiality. Still, the uneasy whispers in her mind refused to be silenced. During an unseasonably chilly Los Angeles winter, Catherine fell ill with a severe flu. She was confined to bed, feverish and weak, while Henry stayed with Catherine's mother in San Diego to avoid catching the virus. Rather than remain by her side, Jonathan claimed a crucial meeting in Toronto demanded his presence. Catherine felt abandoned. She needed him at home, but he departed anyway, with Bianca naturally accompanying him. Catherine spent lonely days recovering in the quiet house, feeling her husband drift further. Upon his return, Jonathan was distant, as though his mind still floated somewhere in the realm of business deals and clandestine longing. Catherine decided they needed to speak to a marriage counselor, suspecting that their unaddressed issues had grown too large to handle alone. Jonathan, surprisingly, agreed. He recognized that Catherine was not wrong about their emotional gulf. In the early sessions, they tiptoed around the real cause Jonathan's affair with Bianca. He rationalized his distance by citing overwork and the pressure of massive expansions. Catherine tearfully admitted feeling pushed aside and unsupported. The counselor urged Jonathan to re-examine his priorities, but the sessions only scraped the surface. Jonathan dreaded the idea of losing Catherine or hurting Henry, yet he couldn't bring himself to sever ties with Bianca, who had burrowed deep into his psyche. One evening, Catherine received a phone call from an unknown number. A woman's voice, calm yet laced with urgency, declared she had proof. Jonathan was having an affair. Catherine's heart pounded, her mind reeling. She tried to maintain composure, demanding to know who was calling. The person refused to identify herself, only saying she was an insider who disliked how Bianca manipulated men in positions of power. Sure enough, an email arrived shortly afterward containing photos of Jonathan and Bianca stepping out of an upscale London hotel, locked in an unmistakably intimate embrace. Captions pointed out the date when Jonathan had told Catherine he was stuck in overnight business meetings. Additional images showed them having dinner alone at a dimly lit table, leaning across a candle to share a tender moment. Stomach churning, Catherine realized that her worst suspicions paled compared to the harsh reality. Rage and heartbreak consumed her. She confronted Jonathan immediately. Forced to see photographic evidence, he could no longer hide behind clever words. He fell silent at first, then stuttered through apologetic pleas. Catherine, tears in her eyes, demanded the full truth. Between sobs, Jonathan confessed that he felt trapped by the affair but unable to stop. He swore he still loved Catherine and was ashamed of what he had done. He promised to end it now. But Catherine's fury knew no bounds. She yelled at him for the lies, for stealing precious moments away from Henry, for humiliating her before the entire city, maybe even the entire world. Once gossip spread. In a desperate attempt to salvage the situation, Jonathan offered to cut ties with Bianca professionally and personally. Catherine, reeling from betrayal, demanded separation until he proved his sincerity. She moved to a suite at a nearby luxury hotel with Henry, leaving the estate that same night. Rumors of Jonathan's infidelity soon trickled into the business world. Certain shareholders questioned if the scandal might undermine the brand's wholesome reputation. Mark Johnson confronted Jonathan, disappointed that he had jeopardized not only his marriage but potentially his entire corporate legacy. Bianca, however, was not content to vanish without a fight. She had invested her skills in Green's wellness, forging alliances with key international investors. She insinuated she deserved more compensation or an elevated role in the corporate structure as a reward for her contributions. Jonathan found himself cornered. He wanted Bianca out of his life, but she threatened to reveal damaging details of the shortcuts and borderline unethical deals he had authorized to ensure swift overseas expansions. If she went public with proof, legal actions and financial ruin could follow. Panicked, Jonathan tried to placate her, offering hush money or a position in a separate venture. Bianca refused, hinting that she wanted a far bigger piece of his business and possibly him officially. Meanwhile, Catherine, still reeling from betrayal, lived in limbo. She sought the counsel of attorneys, uncertain if she should file for divorce. She also visited a therapist who specialized in marital trauma. Henry, barely 3 years old, sensed the tension. Catherine felt torn between rage at Jonathan's betrayal and a deep-seated desire to preserve her family. Despite everything, she couldn't deny that she loved the man who once shared her dreams. In the midst of this emotional maelstrom, Catherine began feeling unwell nausea, lightheadedness, exhaustion. Initially, she chalked it up to stress, but as days turned to weeks, she decided to buy a pregnancy test. The result was positive. Catherine's emotions churned in a storm of shock, fear, and a glimmer of joy. Another child was on the way, conceived before she learned of Jonathan's affair. Conflicted, she considered hiding the pregnancy, at least temporarily. She wasn't sure if Jonathan deserved to know, given the heartbreak he caused. Yet she also recognized the child's right to a father. Ultimately, she called him, voice trembling, and shared the news. Jonathan was stunned into silence. Then a wave of relief or happiness came through. He said he wanted to be fully present this time, that he'd do whatever it took to mend the damage. Catherine felt uncertain, but part of her wanted to believe him. Catherine's pregnancy forced Jonathan to accelerate his efforts to extricate Bianca from his life. Yet, Bianca sensed Jonathan's panic. Leveraging it to her advantage, she demanded an official statement presenting her as a critical legal partner in Green's wellness for years to come. She let slip that she had in her possession emails, recorded calls, and financial documents implicating Jonathan in unethical expansions. If he didn't comply, she would systematically release them to the authorities, tarnishing both his personal and professional reputations. Feeling trapped, Jonathan attempted to gather his loyal allies within the company. He organized clandestine meetings with Mark Johnson and other sympathetic investors, laying out Bianca's blackmail. They concluded that the only way to remove Bianca's leverage was to build a stronger case against her evidence of her own misdeeds. After all, Bianca wasn't exactly innocent. She had orchestrated certain deals that skirted international laws. If they could prove her complicity, they might neutralize her threat. While Jonathan orchestrated these behind-the-scenes maneuvers, Catherine's maternal instincts outweighed her anger. She began contacting private investigators, hoping to compile information about Bianca's background. Catherine discovered that Bianca had a history of entangling herself with wealthy, influential men who advanced her career. No previous case had garnered as much attention or gone public, but whispers implied she'd always exit. These liaisons significantly richer. Catherine shared her findings with Jonathan and Mark Johnson, galvanizing them to push forward with a plan. Despite a flicker of hope that Jonathan might overcome the crisis, Catherine grew overwhelmed. With each passing day, tabloids circled like vultures, broadcasting rumors about an illicit affair and a $1 million mistress. Determined to shield Henry, Catherine left Beverly Hills and returned to her parents' home in San Diego, where she could find emotional support. She believed distance might offer clarity. Jonathan promised to visit on weekends, but business and the Bianca quagmire often demanded his time. In San Diego, Catherine experienced a quieter routine. She joined a prenatal yoga class, something she never did when pregnant with Henry. She reconnected with old friends who reminded her of the self she had been before wealth consumed her life. Nevertheless, heartbreak lingered in every quiet moment. She missed the partner she once had. She felt abandoned, carrying the heavy weight of a child whose father might not be present in the ways she had imagined. Jonathan attempted to contact Catherine daily, though she frequently ignored his calls. He sent gifts, flowers, letters, even a new car. Catherine accepted none of it, stating that she wanted meaningful changes, not material distractions. The separation loomed over Jonathan like a penance. He recognized how drastically he had failed Catherine and Henry, how he'd let his hunger for success overshadow vows of loyalty. The investigation into Bianca's wrongdoing progressed slower than Jonathan would have liked. Fear gnawed at him every night, the dread that Bianca might leak incriminating files, or worse, reveal personal photos of them together. He knew the scandal could obliterate the goodwill he had built over a decade, leaving him penniless and disgraced. Eventually, Jonathan mustered the courage to propose a direct confrontation. He convened a meeting at a private villa in Malibu, inviting Bianca, Mark Johnson, and several key investors. The goal was to orchestrate Bianca's exit on negotiated terms, money, references, while protecting the company. Bianca arrived with a smirk, clearly ready to demand the moon in exchange for her silence. But Mark Johnson launched the meeting by reading out a list of transactions that tied Bianca to potential money laundering, shell companies, and more. Her face blanched. She realized they had gathered substantial evidence. Blackmailing Jonathan wasn't going to be as straightforward as she expected. Rather than concede immediately, Bianca stormed out, threatening to retaliate in ways none of them could imagine. Fearful of how far Bianca might go, Jonathan drove to San Diego. Catherine's father, Joseph Taylor, greeted him at the doorstep with a pained expression, reminding Jonathan of the heartbreak he had inflicted. Nonetheless, Catherine agreed to see him. Over tea in the living room, Jonathan poured out his anguish. He explained how he was working to sever Bianca's hold, how regrets consumed him night and day, how he wanted to earn Catherine's trust once more. Catherine listened quietly, tears brimming. Their conversation stretched into late evening. For the first time in months, Catherine felt Jonathan speak from the heart, not from a place of guilt or damage control. She agreed to return to Los Angeles under one condition: he would arrange for a comprehensive therapy approach, joint marriage counseling, personal counseling for himself, and a plan to ensure the unborn child would never experience the turmoil Henry did. Jonathan, tears in his eyes, vowed to do everything necessary. With her second pregnancy entering its second trimester, Catherine traveled back to Beverly Hills. The estate felt haunted by old memories, yet Jonathan made tangible changes. He relocated corporate functions away from home. He handed more responsibilities to trusted executives, reducing the frantic pace that once consumed him. True to his promise, he engaged with a renowned therapist specializing in high-profile marital conflicts. Catherine and Jonathan resumed counseling, this time tackling the affair head-on. Sessions were emotionally charged. Catherine revealed how deeply the betrayal cut her, how the illusions of their perfect family disintegrated overnight. Jonathan faced the ugliness of his choices, the emptiness in him that no amount of money or success had been able to fill. Slowly, the rawness they had avoided addressing was exposed, and they set about clearing the rubble to reconstruct whatever was left. Just as Jonathan and Catherine began moving toward a semblance of stability, Bianca launched her final strike. An anonymous blog appeared online, detailing Jonathan's private expansions, painting him as a ruthless entrepreneur who'd engaged in hush-money deals, bribery, and even insider trading. The blog included screenshots of questionable emails, some real, some possibly fabricated. The mainstream press latched onto the sensational headlines: Green's wellness empire in turmoil, billionaires' illicit deals exposed. Jonathan spent sleepless nights meeting with crisis management teams, issuing statements and cooperating with authorities to prove his innocence. Catherine felt the stress weigh on her, convinced the unborn child absorbed every morsel of tension. If not for the newly rebuilt emotional rapport with Jonathan, she might have fled again. Yet she stayed, standing beside him at press conferences, portraying a united front. Privately, Catherine wept at the unrelenting barrage, questioning if peace would ever come. On the legal front, Mark Johnson's team worked feverishly, producing evidence that discredited many of the allegations. Where Jonathan had made borderline ethical choices, they uncovered mitigating circumstances or highlighted Bianca's complicit role. Their strategy was to shift blame onto Bianca for orchestrating the unscrupulous expansions. Some legal experts believed the plan might hold up in court, especially if they proved blackmail. A stroke of unexpected fortune arrived when a former associate of Bianca's came forward, prepared to testify that Bianca manipulated documents and orchestrated questionable deals. This gave Jonathan's legal team the ammunition they needed. Bianca, sensing the tides turning, tried to broker a deal. She would retract the blog, release a statement clearing Jonathan, and vanish from the corporate scene if Jonathan agreed to an 8-figure payoff. Instead, Jonathan's lawyers, along with local authorities, filed a lawsuit against Bianca, alleging embezzlement, fraud, and defamation. The lawsuit was accompanied by a restraining order preventing Bianca from approaching Jonathan or Catherine. The news shook the legal community as Bianca's once meteoric rise now plummeted in a swirl of scandal. She faced the real possibility of losing her law license and enduring a criminal investigation. With Bianca legally cornered, Jonathan's business stabilized gradually. Some investors were wary, but the brand still held strong. Jonathan held a press conference, acknowledging mistakes and vowing stricter oversight. He expressed gratitude for Catherine's support in a heartfelt speech. While cynics dismissed it as damage control, those close to the family saw genuine contrition. Meanwhile, Catherine's pregnancy advanced to its final trimester. She and Jonathan inched closer to a place of renewed intimacy. Trust, however, was fragile. Catherine insisted on open discussions about Jonathan's regrets, fears, and the personal demons that led him astray. Jonathan, for his part, showed unprecedented vulnerability, revealing how a relentless drive to succeed sometimes masked deeper insecurities. Counselor sessions shifted from resentment-laden blame to exploring ways they could forge a healthier partnership. Henry, now nearing 4, sensed the warmer atmosphere at home. He cuddled more easily with both parents. Catherine, waddling with her growing belly, often read bedtime stories while Jonathan listened in. The family started hosting modest dinners, reintegrating themselves into social circles while emphasizing simpler joys: quality time, laughter, emotional transparency. During one of these evenings, Mark Johnson joined them for dinner. Over a glass of red wine, he reminisced about discovering Jonathan's talents during that long-ago high school pitch contest. He told Catherine that even then, he sensed Jonathan's potential for greatness. But Mark also noted that ambition without wisdom could be destructive, an echo of everything that had transpired. Jonathan, who once bristled at paternal lectures, accepted Mark's words with humility. After dinner, Catherine and Mark shared a private conversation in the garden. Mark, paternal in tone, thanked Catherine for returning. He believed that her unwavering loyalty would be the saving grace for Jonathan. Catherine admitted she harbored resentment, yet clung to hope that her marriage could evolve into something stronger and more authentic. Mark parted that night, confident he had witnessed the seeds of genuine healing. In the final month of Catherine's pregnancy, tension hovered. The memory of how Jonathan missed Henry's earlier milestones weighed heavily on him, intensifying his resolve to be present for this birth. When Catherine's contractions began late one evening, Jonathan was by her side. They rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. Hours of labor followed, culminating in the early morning cry of a baby girl whom they named Emma Elizabeth Green. The moment Jonathan cut the umbilical cord, tears streamed down his cheeks. For Catherine, exhaustion intermingled with relief and a cautious sense of renewal. She saw Jonathan cradle Emma with trembling arms, voice filled with wonder. Family visited, congratulating them on a healthy newborn. The atmosphere felt surreal less than a year prior. Scandal threatened to tear them apart. Yet here they were, forging new memories within the same domain of wealth and paparazzi-laden streets. Although Emma's birth brought light, the Bianca scandal continued in the background. A preliminary hearing loomed where Bianca faced serious charges. Jonathan and Catherine dreaded the possibility of testifying, but their attorneys insisted it might be necessary. The media, still enthralled by the billionaire's scandalous affair, occasionally snapped photos of Jonathan entering the courthouse for pre-trial discussions. In a twist that spared the couple further public scrutiny, Bianca's attorneys negotiated a plea deal. She admitted partial responsibility for the false blog posts and leaked documents in exchange for reduced charges. Ultimately, Bianca lost her law license and faced a hefty fine, but avoided lengthy jail time. She left Los Angeles soon after, her reputation in shambles. For Jonathan and Catherine, closure arrived not through vengeance, but through Bianca's final disappearance from through life. The weeks after Emma's arrival were a whirlwind of late-night feedings, diaper changes, and Henry's early attempts at big brother interactions. Catherine and Jonathan discovered a joint joy in the mundane aspects of parenting, things once overshadowed by extravagant wealth. Jonathan would lull Emma to sleep at 3 a.m, hum lullabies, and reflect on how swiftly he had nearly destroyed such a precious gift. In therapy, they recognized that illusions of perfection had set them on a dangerous path. Jonathan's unstoppable ambition, combined with Catherine's willingness to remain in the background, created space for unaddressed emotional needs. A slow, methodical rebuilding of trust became their priority, one anchored in daily transparency, shared schedules, open finances, heartfelt conversations about insecurities. Still, Catherine felt occasional pangs of suspicion whenever Jonathan had late meetings. She overcame them through honest dialogue. Jonathan, in turn, needed constant reassurance that Catherine was truly committed to forgiving him. Rebuilding was not a single moment of absolution, but an ongoing process, requiring empathy and patience. Months passed, and Catherine suggested they move from Beverly Hills. While the estate had once symbolized success, it now carried memories of betrayal. She proposed a quieter area, perhaps a ranch on the outskirts of Santa Barbara or a coastal home near Laguna Beach. Jonathan, initially hesitant, realized how significantly the environment shaped their emotional state. They eventually settled on a modern yet cozy house in Montecito, perched on a cliff overlooking the Pacific. Less glitzy than Beverly Hills, it offered a tranquil environment to raise their children. Henry adapted to the new location swiftly, marveling at the rocky beaches and enjoying a more laid-back routine. Emma giggled in the arms of her parents, oblivious to the turmoil that had almost prevented her from arriving into a stable family. Catherine, still coping with the residual heartbreak, found solace in creating a warm, welcoming home that reflected their new commitment. In Montecito, Jonathan restructured his business approach. The scandal taught him that relentless expansion without ethics or stability was a recipe for catastrophe. He established a philanthropic branch within Green's Wellness, funding community-based fitness and mental health initiatives in underserved regions. Catherine pitched in, using her empathy and organizational skills to spearhead local charity events. Their philanthropic synergy did more than burnish the company's public image. It reminded them both of the deeper reasons they had pursued success in the first place. That year, Jonathan declined multiple invitations to keynote international conferences, prioritizing time at home. He woke early to jog along the coast with Catherine, prepared breakfast for Henry, and played with Emma on a quilt in the living room. Catherine took up painting, a hobby she had abandoned amidst the chaos of high society life. The gentle brushstrokes, capturing Montecito's sunrises and pastoral hills, provided a therapeutic release. Mark Johnson and other old colleagues visited periodically, struck by Jonathan's calmer demeanor. Some teased him about finally learning to slow down. Others expressed relief that scandal no longer overshadowed his philanthropic expansions. Catherine felt the subtle difference too. Jonathan was no longer the restless man scanning phone notifications at dinner. He engaged, listened, and embraced fatherhood wholeheartedly. As time marched on, even tabloids lost interest. The name Bianca Street James no longer appeared in sensational headlines. Instead, articles highlighted Green's wellness philanthropic projects or commented on how Catherine and Jonathan seemed stronger than ever, the couple that overcame heartbreak. Some praised Catherine for her grace under intense scrutiny, while Jonathan garnered cautious admiration for confronting his failings and emerging reformed. In the privacy of their Montecito home, Catherine and Jonathan often spoke candidly. They didn't shy from the memory of Bianca or Jonathan's betrayal. Those wounds, though scarred over, served as a stark reminder of how fragile devotion could be. In acknowledging the darkness, they made space for deeper understanding. A once gilded marriage, overshadowed by routine and ambition, now sparkled with a new authenticity, albeit shaped by struggle. On Emma's first birthday, Catherine and Jonathan organized a small gathering in their new home. Family and trusted friends arrived, celebrating the milestone. A toddler's delight transformed the living room into a sea of pastel balloons and laughter. Henry, now 5, served as a proud older brother, carefully showing Emma how to unwrap her gifts. Catherine's parents drove up from San Diego, tearful yet joyful, to see how far their daughter and son-in-law had come. Mark Johnson flew in from New York, excited to witness a serene, content side of Jonathan that once seemed impossible. Over slices of homemade cake, conversation flowed about how rapidly life can change and how people adapt. Jonathan privately thanked Mark for standing by him despite the scandal's potential to harm the company. Mark responded with paternal warmth, observing that a strong moral compass could guide a person through even the stormiest seas. Catherine, overhearing, felt gratitude wash over her. In a swirl of pink wrapping paper and children's giggles, she thought about how close they had been to losing all of this. Catherine sometimes revisited the swirl of emotions that accompanied her second pregnancy rage: betrayal, uncertainty about the future. Now, as Emma tottered around the living room in her new shoes, Catherine felt a surge of pride for having mustered the courage to reclaim her life. She recognized her own resilience. She had confronted heartbreak, demanded reforms, and found the strength to protect herself and her children. In a quiet moment that evening, she and Jonathan stood on the balcony. The horizon glowed with a crimson sunset. Catherine gently laced her fingers through his. "Do you ever regret it all?" she asked, her eyes fixed on the fading sun. Jonathan swallowed, recalling the anguish he had wrought. "I regret hurting you," he murmured. "I regret letting greed and vanity blind me. But seeing how we've grown, even with the scars, I know we've built something more real now." Catherine nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. The gentle hum of the ocean waves below carried away some of the lingering ache in her heart. A few months after Emma's birthday, Jonathan surprised Catherine with an idea. They should renew their wedding vows, symbolically embracing a fresh chapter. Catherine hesitated at first, wondering if it was necessary. Ultimately, the concept resonated. They decided on an intimate beach ceremony at dusk, accompanied only by their closest circle. Catherine's mother fashioned a simple floral arch on the sand. Henry walked hand in hand with Emma, scattering rose petals as they giggled at the surf. Mark Johnson stood as Jonathan's best man, while Catherine's best friend, Aria Kinsley, served as maid of honor. When Jonathan recited his vows, tears clouded his vision. He spoke of the mistakes he had made, the lessons learned, and the unwavering hope he held for their shared future. Catherine responded with quiet grace, acknowledging her heartbreak and her choice to forgive, not out of weakness, but out of courage to see what they could become. As the sun dipped below the horizon, they embraced, sealing their commitment with a kiss that tasted of salt air and redemption. In the months that followed, Catherine occasionally encountered passing references to Bianca in the press rumors that she lived in Europe under a different name, or that she might be attempting to rebuild her career in another field. But these mentions were so minor they scarcely ruffled Catherine or Jonathan. Their focus lay on the present, nurturing Emma's blossoming personality, guiding Henry through his early school years, and balancing their philanthropic responsibilities with a cherished family life. Green's wellness shifted towards sustainability and mental health advocacy. Catherine joined the board, championing postpartum support programs and free counseling for disadvantaged mothers. Each time they co-hosted a charity gala, they remembered the misguided extravagance that once fueled Jonathan's ambition. Now, events served a purpose beyond status or networking. They were about giving back, healing, connecting. On weekends, Jonathan turned off his phone and joined Henry on imaginative backyard adventures, forging the father-son bond they had lacked for years. When Emma, age 2, waddled into his lap one morning while Catherine made breakfast, Jonathan felt a contentment he realized he'd never fully experienced in all those years of relentless striving. Here, cradled in daily joys, was a genuine sense of wealth surpassing any transaction or corporate triumph. Every so often, memories of the turbulence threatened to resurface. Catherine would catch Jonathan staring pensively at old photos or reading a snippet of scandal gossip with a distant look. They discussed it openly, refusing to let lingering shame or regret corrode their new foundation. If anything, acknowledging the pain reaffirmed how hard they had fought to stand where they did. It wasn't about erasing the past, but harnessing it as a fulcrum for a more mindful future. Catherine's father once told her, "Forgiveness isn't about pretending the scars don't exist. It's about seeing the scar and choosing to keep living." Indeed, the experience etched permanent marks on their spirits, but it also clarified how easily illusions can tear relationships apart and how unwavering resolve can stitch them together again. Years went by, and Henry entered elementary school as Emma toddled into preschool. Catherine and Jonathan thrived in roles that blended leadership with humility. Jonathan was the CEO who championed ethical expansions. Catherine was a philanthropic director bridging local communities with Green's Wellness. They traveled together more often, sometimes bringing the children along to events. They scaled expansions carefully, ensuring time for family dinners, bedtime stories, and annual vacations. When Henry turned 8, Catherine asked him about his earliest memory. He mentioned snippets of a big house. He barely recalled, some tension he didn't understand. She recognized it as the period she had moved away. Catherine inhaled deeply, relieved that Henry's recollections were largely overshadowed by the stable, loving environment they cultivated after Emma's birth. Periodically, Catherine recalled the initial heartbreak, a swirl of paparazzi, that email with incriminating photos, the nights she sobbed while Henry slept at her mother's. Despite the anguish, she also saw how adversity had become their teacher. She taught Henry and Emma the virtues of honesty and compassion, hoping they would learn from mistakes she and Jonathan once made. Freed from illusions of perfect marital bliss, she embraced the real depth that emerged only after confronting their darkest moment. As Catherine walked along the shoreline with Jonathan one evening, the kids safely tucked in bed, they mused on life's twists. Where once their estate bristled with emptiness, the Montecito home was now filled with children's laughter and the fragrance of baked treats Catherine loved making. Jonathan's phone no longer incessantly buzzed. He valued the hush of the ocean, the briny air, and the simple pleasure of holding hands with the woman he almost lost. Catherine leaned into him, recalling their vow renewal. She asked, "Do you ever worry about us losing track again?" Jonathan tightened his arm around her shoulder. "Not the same way," he whispered. "We know too well where that road leads." They strolled in comfortable silence, aware that while no future was guaranteed, they had forged a partnership capable of weathering storms. The estate in Beverly Hills, where Bianca once roamed, was sold. The proceeds partly funded their philanthropic foundation and partly established college trusts for Henry and Emma. Every now and then, old acquaintances brought up the scandal, referencing it as a cautionary tale about greed and temptation. Catherine and Jonathan never boasted. Instead, they quietly lived out a transformation that had turned betrayal into a fresh chance for authentic devotion. In time, Mark Johnson retired, entrusting part of his investment firm to Jonathan. Younger executives stepped up in Green's Wellness, bringing fresh energy. Catherine remained a comforting anchor, ensuring each new initiative aligned with the soul of the business: well-being, empathy, community. In each philanthropic event they organized, people witnessed a synergy formed not by the pursuit of fame, but by an acknowledgement of the power of second chances. As Emma neared 5 and Henry prepared for middle school, the memory of the mistress who nearly wrecked their family seemed distant. Yet Catherine occasionally flipped through an old journal, reading entries from those harrowing days. She revisited the raw heartbreak, uncertain if she had done the right thing by returning. Her journal's last lines from that period read, "I choose love, but never again at the expense of my own dignity." That sentiment encapsulated how their marriage had evolved, love tempered by self-respect and honesty. Jonathan, for his part, remained attuned to Catherine's emotional signals, ensuring he never repeated the behaviors that led him astray. He recognized the privilege of redemption was not something to be squandered. Neighbors in Montecito rarely pried, the community valued privacy, giving them space to exist as a normal family. Sometimes Catherine found it surreal that a near-catastrophic affair turned into an impetus for profound personal and relational growth. But as she tucked Emma into bed, reading bedtime stories about heroes who overcame dragons and curses, she realized life's real villain had been complacency, secrecy, and unchecked ambition. Now, as she watched Jonathan kneel beside her, helping Emma pronounce tricky words, she felt thankful for the journey. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was a testament to resilience, shaped by tears, confessions, therapy sessions, and new beginnings. Ultimately, Catherine understood that real love could endure, provided both partners remained committed to facing the truth even when it was painful. Decades later, the Green family's story would be recounted in local circles as an example of heartbreak turned to triumph. The scandal became a footnote, overshadowed by the philanthropic success of Green's wellness and the lasting positivity. Jonathan and Catherine spread through community work. In the final assessment, Bianca's intrusion had threatened everything. Yet Catherine's return, pregnant and determined, forced truths into the open, setting the stage for sincere transformation. The crisis revealed the cracks in their marriage, but also unleashed the will to rebuild it stronger than ever. Catherine's bravery in demanding respect, Jonathan's willingness to reform, and the impetus of a growing family formed the bedrock of their renewal. The public might have called it a Hollywood drama, but for Jonathan and Catherine, it was simply the story of how a betrayal opened their eyes to the necessity of honesty and love. Each day they awakened, greeted the children, and faced the challenges of life. They bore witness to the resilience that rose from the ashes of heartbreak. Mistress destroyed the millionaire's family? Perhaps. But the pregnant wife's return changed everything, restoring the family's soul and proving that genuine love, once tested, could blaze back even brighter than before. Moments of betrayal can devastate, yet they can also spark the courage to rebuild. Jonathan and Catherine endured heartbreak they never anticipated, propelled by ambition and a deceptive third party who nearly shattered their world. Yet through honest confrontation, painful therapy sessions, and unwavering commitment to their children, they discovered the power of redemption. Old illusions gave way to transparency and renewed devotion. If this journey resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe. By spreading this story, you remind others that survival and growth are possible even in the face of profound betrayal. Let Jonathan and Catherine's transformation become a testament. Real love isn't about perfection, but about confronting darkness, making amends, and standing stronger together. Join us again for more heart-stirring tales that reveal how hope can rise when everything seems lost, lighting a path toward healing for every wounded soul willing to fight for it.